What is the aim of the necessity trial?
Hello to everyone. I am Xavier Mariette. I am the head of Immunorheumatology Department in Paris-Saclay University and the head of the clinical department in Bicêtre Hospital, Assistance Publique Hôpitaux de Paris. I am the coordinator of a European project called Necessity, and the goal is to set up new clinical outcome in a rare disease which is called Sjogren's disease. Sjogren's disease is an autoimmune disease which is very heterogeneous. So it's difficult to design a composite outcome for this disease, and this is mandatory for running clinical trial. So the main aim of Necessity was to set up this composite outcome for running trials in the disease.
What is your relationship with ECRIN in this multinational clinical trial?
As I said, it is a rare disease, so we have to involve different countries for working on these rare diseases. So the first step was to set up these new clinical outcomes, and once we have done that, it was mandatory to validate that. And for validation, we need a clinical trial, and it's the reason why we set up this new clinical trial among 8 countries. The other goal of running a clinical trial was to test a new type of treatment, which was a combination of classical treatment, classical immunosuppressive drugs, and for having enough power, it was mandatory to design a multinational trial.
Why did you decide to build on a multinational clinical trial?
So when you design a multinational trial and you are academic, you need to have a sponsor and you need to have monitoring. And as you know, it's more difficult than when a trial is sponsored by a pharma industry. So our institution, Assistance Publique Hôpitaux de Paris, was the sponsor of this trial, but we needed absolutely to have a monitoring in the 8 countries. And the structure of ECRIN is perfectly adapted for this task. So we decided to work with ECRIN for the monitoring of the clinical trial in the different countries.
What did you find easy and challenging in the realization of the trial?
I must say, number of things were challenging. The first one was the role of the sponsor at the European level. The academic sponsors are not so used to run a clinical trial across Europe. And so we had a learning curve for that, but at the end of the day, it went well. The second challenge was the collaboration with the sponsor, Assistance Publique Hôpitaux de Paris, and ECRIN for the monitoring. So again, there was a learning curve, but finally the relationship between both was very, very effective. We had the chance to have very good leaders, both in APHP and in ECRIN. And so we could have really a fluid work among all the journey of the clinical trial. And the last point was the relation with the different CROs in the different countries, because we have so different CTU, and ECRIN managed that, I think, very well, just to organize the work of the different CTUs in the different countries. So at the end of the day, it was not so easy, but I think the process was very successful. And I think it's very important in the future to be able to run clinical trial, international clinical trial with academic sponsor and academic monitoring.
What are the key outcomes of the trial and the next steps?
So the last patients was run just before Christmas 25, so on the 18th of December. So the database is now locked, and we have just begun the statistic analysis. So we expect to have the first results of the statistic analysis around May. And this analysis will have 2 objectives. The first one is to validate the new composite outcome, and we have called this new composite outcome STAR, Sjogren Tool for Assessing Response to Treatment. So we will have the validation of STAR at that time. And the second objective is, of course, in this clinical trial, to have the result of the effect of the drugs that were tested. So as I said previously, we tested a combination of classical immunosuppressors, combination of hydroxychloroquine and leflunomide, and combination of hydroxychloroquine and mycophenolate mofetil. And if one of these combinations is successful, since this drug is available in the market, they could be used very quickly in our patients with Sjogren's disease.
Do you have lessons learned to share with sponsors interested in working with ECRIN?
As I said, it's very crucial to be able to run international clinical trial with an academic sponsor. It is the only way to be independent of pharma industry, the only way to test therapeutic strategies and not only a new drug, to repurpose new drug in new diseases. And for that, the academic sponsor need to have help. And a structure like ECRIN is very well adapted for helping the academic sponsors to run international studies by organizing all the monitoring in the different countries. So I think it's in the future, collaboration with ECRIN and academic sponsor will be crucial for developing new strategies in different domains of medicine.